welcome back to the
Swaggy
Science.
Students. Yeah.
And today we're doing
Yay.
chapter 7, cell structure and energy.
Okay, I will not be interrupted anymore. Okay, so first topic we'll be talking about the cell discovery and the theory. So when it was discovered, we had Robert Hooke, who cut a piece of cork and put it under a microscope. And what he saw were little cells. And he named them cells because they looked like little prison cells and they have little membranes inside them. Okay, so cells are the base. Cells are the basic structural and foundation unit of living things. All living things. She has cells, and I have cells.
And so is Taylor, but
Yes.
whatever, it's
Not really.
fine. Nah, she's not human.
And in the late 1600s, we got this man named Anton van Leeuwenhoek.
Woo!
And
Who's this guy?
Yeah!
Whoa!
And he was a
You
professional
man.
lens maker, so he'd make lenses, and he
Like
made
these.
the first
Lenses.
decent microscope. And what he did with that is he looked at cells. And with the cell theory, which is now what we're going into, Matthias Schleiden concluded that plants were made of cells.
Oh my gosh.
And
Oh
also,
my God.
Theodor Schwann concluded that all animals were made of cells.
Like a dog.
Like a puppy
Little
or a
puppy.
Put a
Little puppy.
when you edit this, put dogs in all of our hands.
Can you do that?
I was gonna do that anyway,
Go.
so you don't need to tell me what to do.
Okay.
Here, everyone go like this.
Okay. Okay.
Thumbnail.
Thumbnail!
Okay, let me continue.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. And in the mid 1850s, Rudolf Virchow
Nice.
Yeah.
proposed that cells come from other cells. So cells split from other cells.
Reproduction.
Yes, reproduction, and they move with it. Okay. Now,
Okay. Cell theory is the fundamental ideas of. Oh wait, no, we missed it. Okay. The
Okay,
cell
wait,
theory-
restart.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay,
but-
no, you can't ask a question because we need to go look at the clock.
Oh my god.
Okay.
Oh, hurry up. Oh.
Okay, the cell theory is the fundamental idea of modern biology. There's three things in the cell theory. One, all organisms are composed of one or more cells. And two is that cells are the basic unit of like function, structure, or organization. And cells come from other cells. They pass on genetic information. So cell theory is really great. It's still used today.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah.
now we're gonna be talking about technology of microscopes.
Woo!
Yeah.
I wish I had a microscope.
Same.
Yeah. Fortnite.
Okay.
Everyone do it. Everyone do it. Everyone do it.
So now we're going to be talking about microscope technology. Microscopes were improved very much, and since they were improved, they discovered more about cells. There are two main microscopes. First is the compound microscope. It uses two or more lenses that are 100 times magnified to see the cell. The second one is an electron microscope. That uses magnets and it focuses on the sample.
That, nothing else.
Okay, wait.
Literally
okay.
say what's there.
Ready?
Is that Lexi?
So a TEM microscope is a transmission electron microscope.
I'm so sorry.
That is the internal image microscope is a scanning electron microscope, and that views the external image. A STM microscope is a scanning tunneling microscope, and that can use live organisms. An AFM microscope is an atomic force microscope, and it measure forces.
Yeah.
So all types of cells have these two things in common. They all have similar genetic material and they all have to metabolize food and energy. All cells have a plasma membrane, which is a boundary that controls what goes in and out of the cell. There are two types of cells. There's a eukaryotic and a prokaryotic. A eukaryotic cell contains a nucleus and it has organelles that have special structures that carry out the cell's functions. The prokaryotic has no specialized structures and it's mostly bacteria and unicellular organisms. Hey, Aaron,
Here's the
stop.
one yelling at us.
That's perfectly fine.
No, it's not.
Why?
Because you're picky.
So all types of cells have these two things in common. They all have similar genetic material, and they all have to metabolize food and energy. All cells have a plasma membrane, which is a boundary that controls what goes in and out of the cell. There are two types of cells. There's a eukaryotic and a prokaryotic. A eukaryotic cell contains a nucleus, and it has organelles that have special structures that carry out the cell's functions. The prokaryotic has no specialized structures, and it's mostly bacteria and unicellular organisms. Now I'll be talking about the origin of cell diversity. So it started with prokaryotic cells, and then it has evolved from there into eukaryotic cells as well.
Okay, so I'm talking about the plasma membrane, which has two functions. It maintains homeostasis in the cell, and it's thin and flexible. A plasma membrane has selective permeability, which means it allows certain materials in and out of the cell. The structure of it is there's a phospholipid bilayer, which has two layers. It has a polar head and a non-polar tail. The polar head is hydrophilic, which means it likes water. The tail is hydrophobic, which means it's water-fearing. Oh yeah, okay. No, the plasma membrane is also a barrier to separate two different environments. There's receptor proteins, which transmit signals, anchor proteins, which give cell its shape, transport proteins, which is like a tunneled shape, and it moves waste and nutrients. It also has cholesterol, which keeps the phospholipid bilayer from sticking together, and then carbs chains, which helps identify signals and define shape. The plasma membrane also has the fluid mosaic model, which means that the plasma membrane is constantly in motion. Sorry. Guys, I need to go home so bad.
Next, we'll be talking about the organelles. I'll first be talking about the cytoplasm and cytoskeleton. The cytoplasm is a semi-fluid material found all around the cell. The cytoskeleton is a supporting network of long, thin protein fibers in the cytoplasm. This acts as like a framework for support and an anchor to the organelles. It's composed of microfilaments, which help give it shape and enable the cells to move, and microtubules, which provide a rigid skeleton for the cell and assist it to move.
Yeet.
Yeah,
Now I will be talking about.
Talk a little bit louder.
Will be talking about what the parts of the cell are and what functions they have. So first we'll be talking about the CEO of the cell. We'll be talking about the nucleus. The nucleus makes all the decisions. He's
guy
a big
or woman.
man. He
No,
is
woman, could be a woman too.
or woman.
Yes.
Or woman.
Yes.
It's 2018. We're
Yes. Yes.
And so, if we're thinking about our school district, he's the Mark Matuszka.
Woo!
He's got all the decisions in his hand. Now we'll be talking about ribosomes. Ribosomes produce proteins. So those are like the workers on the assembly line putting a car together. They're making the product. So there are free-floating ribosomes that make proteins from cytoplasm. And there are also attached ribosomes that make proteins from cell membranes.
I look like a floating head. No, literally all you have to do is read it.
Alright,
Just
the
read.
nucleolus its job is to make ribosomes for the cell. The endoplasmic reticulum, or the ER, provides a large surface area in the cell where cellular functions takes place. There are two types, a smooth ER, which has no ribosomes and provides a surface area for creating complex carbohydrates and lipids, and a rough ER, which has ribosomes, provides a place for ribosomes to make cell membrane proteins.
Did you say what jobs they would have in a factory?
Shut up.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So I'm talking about the Golgi body and the vacuoles. Okay. So the Golgi body, also known as Golgi apparatus, is the part that like sorts and packages proteins into vessels. Like they're kind of like these little bubbles to be sent somewhere else. They kind of look like a flat stack of membranes. Vacuoles are temporary storage of materials in the cytoplasm, like water and waste. It looks like membrane-bound vessels, which are large in plant cells and tiny if there is any in cells, in animal cells.
Oh, thank you very much. Mr. Fowler, want to be on our line?
Mr. Fowler, we get cookies tomorrow.
Want to be in our video?
What's the video?
For biology.
Science.
Hi, science.
Swaggy science students.
I have to.
What
That's
kind
her
of
name.
stuff? What kind of
Triple F.
cookies are we getting tomorrow?
Look us up on YouTube. We have 1 million subscribers.
Actually, only 100.
Lysosomes. Lysosomes are only in animal cells, and they digest old cell parts, waste, and bacteria or viruses. They are a membrane-bound vesicle with digestive enzymes.
Okay, why is the folder right there?
You should do a collage of me putting down your guys' paper because I swear I put that to you guys 500. Oh my god, my voice.
All right, can I talk
Listen
now,
to my
or is
voice.
this just gonna?
Okay, go, Taylor.
Now I'll be talking about centrioles, which aid in cellular division. They have a part-time job if they worked in a cell factory. They are made of microtubulars.
Microtubulars.
Sorry. They're
That's
made
what
of
it is.
microtubulars and found near the nucleus.
Yeah, baby.
Yep.
So micro.
You literally like, you sound like a
Have
baby.
you not ever heard of that before?
No.
You do it all the time.
Okay, Ellie, you need to stop.
You can't. Here, you
Mitochondria.
can't have the paper that it looks like we're just reading from the paper.
That's what we're doing.
I
Mitochondria.
wanted to know that.
Mitochondria provides the cell
Just
energy
louder.
by converting sugar.
Why do you always talk about it every time?
I know
you
it's
do it?
awesome.
Structures. It has 2 membranes,
You have to
an
start
inner
over.
and
You
outer.
have to do
and
4 times.
Then maybe you should just shut up and let me talk.
There you go.
You guys talked for 5 minutes while I was trying to go.
Okay, go.
Okay,
You were laughing.
so mitochondria.
Anna, shut up.
Aaron, stop talking weird.
Just talk normal,
Okay,
please.
so we got some mitochondria here. Just let me talk.
How many
Let
how
him
many
talk,
way
let the
here?
man
How
talk.
many way here?
Okay, so now we're talking about some mitochondria. It provides the cells with energy. It provides the cells with
It's
energy
sticky,
by
bro.
converting sugar. It's got 2 membranes, an inner and outer, which provides large surface areas for sugar breakdown.
Aaron, talk loud. No one can hear you.
You're also talking like this. and
Now we'll
then
be
you're
talking about chloroplast. Through sunlight, it provides the cell with energy by converting sugars in plants only. It's got 2 structures. It's got 2 membranes, and an inner is stacked with disc-like compartments for storage and energy for the molecule.
It's on us.
Oh god, it's me.
Disgusting. Okay, that was so bad, Aaron. You have to do it.
Why?
Just
Buzz,
we're laughing
you
the
couldn't
whole
even
time.
hear you.
were
Redo
talking
it.
Weird.
No, it's
A
fine.
cell wall.
We'll
A
make
cell
it work.
wall supports
Start over.
framework in
Start over.
plant/bacteria cells.
We'll
only.
make
Oh my
it
god,
work.
Anna, that was so good though.
Oh my god, was it?
Yeah, we kind of
Okay,
messed it up
just
for you.
read
I'm
it.
sorry.
Yeah,
Guys,
wait,
that's
why
a
did we do
first.
this? I remember talking. Okay, Anna, you got this. Come on.
Okay. Cell wall. A cell wall supports framework in plant bacterial cells only. Cilia and flagella. God, how did I say that wrong?
Flagella.
Flagella.
Cilia and flagella helps move around in watery environments. They are made of microtubules in a 9+2 configuration.
You be the head and I'm the tail.
Microtubulars.
That's what it says.
Microtubulars. Is it?
Oh, you're the one that
Tubules.
corrected me on it.
It's microtubules. She's right.
Okay, we got that done. Okay, no, just
No,
say
we all
Cilia as
laughed.
a short. Yeah, I know, but
cares?
we
I
can
don't
cut
think
that
I can
out.
do that again.
Or I can leave it in because it's funny.
It's like
Cilia,
short tail. Hair like. Just put hair like.
cilia is short, hair-like projections. A flagella is a long, whip-like tail.
We
Everyone went 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Why was yours so big? Aaron went like this.
So did I.
We can leave that in there.
Not you.
Literally says
Right.
Ellie, not Taylor.
Yeah, really. You Taylor?
Didn't
Or
read it.
Say it. Oh,
Let's go.
I understand.
Sure, it
I
says-
comprehend.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to be talking about the first type of cellular transportation. Diffusion or passive transportation is when particles move from high concentration to low concentration, when there's very little to no energy needed.
Kaylee, what's going on with you?
Okay, I had to sneeze.
You
but I
decided to
had
give me the on this part.
I had to-
Ellie, why are you choking up?
Why do you have white? Why do you have white stuff around your eyes?
I want that
Like, look at the
apple.
corner of her eyes. She got a bunch of white stuff.
Because I'm sick.
Do you have pink eye?
No. But my eyes
an
do
apple.
really hurt.
No.
Maybe something's wrong with my eye. Not you.
Literally says
Alright.
Ellie, not Taylor.
Yeah, really. Taylor?
Didn't
Or
read it.
Say it. Oh,
Let's go.
I understand.
Sure, it
I
says-
comprehend.
Okay. Okay. I'm going to be talking about the first type of cellular transportation. Diffusion or passive transportation is when particles move from high concentration to low concentration, when there's very little to no energy needed.
Kaylee, what's going on with you?
Okay, I had to sneeze.
You
but I had
decided to
to
give me
sneeze.
the on this part.
I had to-
Ellie, why are you choking up?
Why do you have white?
Okay,
On
and
what?
this diffusion eventually results in dynamic equilibrium, which means there's no change in concentration of substances. Factors that affect diffusion can be concentration, temperature, pressure, and concentration of the substances. Plasma membrane is also Facilitated diffusion is when you transport proteins. When transport proteins help move around substances. That's also a type of passive transportation. We're supposed to be heading back now, so far.
Oh, whoops.
No, we still
Now, oh
10
my
minutes.
Okay, we need to film.
now let me
Okay, Ellie, you just like yelled at her.
I know,
and
and
then
I've
you-
been doing it the whole time.
Okay, let's go.
now I'll be,
She didn't yell at me, actually.
now I'll be talking about osmosis. Osmosis is H2O molecules moving from high to low concentration. There's different types of osmosis.
Let's talk a little faster, Sadie. Let's go.
Oh my god, literally.
You're talking like 2 miles an hour.
There's different types
can't
of
read.
osmosis. You just take the one piece of paper and go with
That's-
it.
what do you think I'm doing?
Run.
There's
No
different
way.
types of osmosis. The first type is isotonic, which is the same concentration of H2O inside and outside of the cell. So the cell stays in its normal shape and has homeostasis. Then there's hypotonic, which is a lower concentration of solute outside the cell. So